first gunshot sounded, I looked up at the buildings thinking somebody was throwing firecrackers out the window, but only a split second. I only had a split second before some stranger, and I still don't know who it was, pulled me down to the ground. We were standing on the corner, and we kept waiting. We weren't sure how we would know when the president was coming, but we actually heard the crowd got very noisy when he got close. And there's only that one block. He came around the corner from Main Street and turned on Houston, and then we could hear the crowds. So I was supposed to be getting ready with my movie camera when we heard them coming. So we stepped out in the street and are on the corner, and I got ready. As soon as they appeared from behind the crowd, I started filming.
How exciting was it for you to be there?
It was exciting, but I was so focused on taking the film and doing it right and making sure I didn't mess up that, and I was looking through the viewfinder, so I don't think I really realized how important this day was to us and to Dallas until afterwards.
Just still staying at that moment, did you heard the gunshots? You were close to the gunshots. What did you think?
I thought, at first, I thought it was firecrackers. I thought somebody was throwing firecrackers out of a window, and I looked up for a split second and wasn't looking for anything specific, but somebody pulled me down to the ground by my arm, a stranger. And so I laid there on the ground, and when he let go of my arm, I wish I knew who this person was, but I don't. When he let go of my arm, it was safe to get up, and I reconnected with my parents.
And what did your parents at that moment do? What did you and your parents do at that moment?
Mother and Dad, Dad was alarmed. He thought, he recognized the sound as gunshots. He recognized it as a high-powered rifle, and he said to Mother and me that he thought somebody had tried to shoot the president.
What was that like?
Unbelievable. We didn't say much to each other, and of course there were sirens and people running and yelling. I don't remember really screaming, but I just remember a lot of crowd noise and people running in different directions, and just kind of wondering what we should do. But my father wanted to go down towards the grassy knoll. People were running towards the grassy knoll and over the grassy knoll area. So he took his camera and he went down there, and Mother and I waited up on Dealey Plaza for him to come back. So we stood there and watched and listened. My mother and I did.
As you said that you didn't realize what it all meant. I mean, you were just still barely a teenager.
I didn't realize what was going on, and but I never was afraid. It wasn't. I don't ever remember being afraid, and I don't remember my mother ever saying she felt like she was afraid either. And it just happened so fast. And Mother and I stood there and waited. I don't know for sure how long he was gone, maybe 15 minutes. He came back and asked me if I had used up the film in the camera because the meter was broken. And he knew it was at the end of the reel, and he told me before we left that if I heard the film clicking inside the camera, then I'd run out, but we should have plenty for the motorcade. And we did have plenty for the motorcade, but then he asked me if I'd heard it run out, and I didn't, or I hadn't, so he said, use up the film and film the area from the triple underpass up towards the school book depository building. Now, I did that until I heard it run out.
In the hours, at that point you're not so much worried after that about that you have film, I suppose, at that moment, but in the hours and days that went by then, were you aware of the terribleness of what had happened, or were you kind of getting that from your parents, or what was that like?
By the end of the day, they were asking people to bring the film in for to be developed and viewed. And the Dallas Morning News is what I remember. And at that point, we began to realize that we might have something on our film, or we really didn't know what we had on our film or on his photographs that he took. It began to sink in then. Of course, as soon as they announced that the president was dead, then all these other things started happening with the media, and that was when my dad did just what they were asking him to do. He took the film and the undeveloped film and stills, the film from the still camera, down to, I guess, the Dallas Morning News, and handed it over.
The film aside, did you have a sense then as a 13-year-old, or were you kind of getting it from just through your parents of how people were feeling at that point? Like, what were you feeling, I guess, in those hours and days?
I didn't know what to feel. I knew it was bad. I didn't know. I really didn't know what to say or do when people would ask us about it. I learned pretty early that it was awkward to talk about. I didn't, politically, I didn't have a clue what this meant. But I knew it was bad, and I knew it wasn't good for Dallas. And other than that, my parents were very upset about it, especially my father. He couldn't talk about it. It was very difficult for the rest of his life for him to talk about. And I don't know if it was because of the violent act or whether it was the politics. My sisters and I don't really even know what his feelings were towards, or my mother's either, towards Kennedy as a president. He never said anything bad about him. I think he liked him, but we don't know if he voted for him. But either way, it affected him.
How has it affected you? I mean, you were there, and now you've had all these years to kind of take stock.
It's kind of an odd feeling, because it's not something I thought about very often, really. I mean, I'd think about it occasionally in the beginning. I didn't even go by Dealey Plaza or go to Dealey Plaza for probably until the 70s sometime, and actually get out and walk around. But it's, life goes on, and family, and you just are doing what everybody would be doing in your circumstances, and then all of a sudden it'll come up, somebody will ask you about it, or it will come up in a conversation and they find out that I was there, and then the conversation dies. They don't know what to say after that. So that's one reason I don't.
Is that because of the awkwardness in this community as opposed to the rest of the world, where everybody asks, where were you, what was it about, and then the next person jumps in?
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that, because if I didn't bring it up, if the conversation was about that and somebody said, well, I was here or I was there, and then I suddenly say where I was, they're just speechless. They don't. I guess they might be afraid I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. It was just awkward.
Does it seem like a long, long time ago, or how does your recollection of it?
My recollection is good. It does seem like another life. In some respects, it seems like just yesterday, because when I say it's been 50 years, I'm not old enough for it to be 50 years ago if I was there. But it's the last few years I spent a lot of time thinking about it, because I started writing everything down. That I have a lot of files that I've kept over the years from the time it happened.
Right.
And so over the past few years, reading through my files about conversations and events, and it all started becoming fresh again. almost like reading it for the first time.
Anything else you would recall or want to say about that? I mean, I know you being asked this probably by more than just myself, but
well, nobody interviewed us. Nobody asked to talk to us officially, and until 1967, Life magazine called us, and they published an article in November of '67 of some witnesses that had never been interviewed before or had never had anything published about them before. So that was the first time anybody talked to us. And then, but the authorities never talked to us until they reopened the case, and the House Assassinations Committee sent someone to pick up my original film, and they talked briefly with me at my office.
Okay.